John, can you hear us? Or Sam?
Yes,
we
I can hear you.
Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you.
You bet, thank you.
Mr. Paz, will you be doing the staff report?
Yes, he will.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go mute now for a bit. It's 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's public hearing. My name is John Urino, and I'm the zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. I conduct rezoning and other land use hearings on behalf of the mayor and council and make findings of fact, which I put into a written report along with my recommendation, which I then send along to the mayor and council for their consideration and for their final decision. My report will be based on the information submitted to me, which includes the rezoning application, the staff report, all written approvals and protests, all correspondence, and the testimony given at tonight's public hearing. I will also include in the record all documents submitted to me up to the close of the public hearing. Tonight's proceedings are being recorded. With that in mind, if you choose to testify, I would ask you please to speak clearly and begin your testimony by stating your name and your address. The process after tonight goes like this. First, I complete a preliminary report within 5 working days after the close of the public hearing. Then I prepare a final report. The final report will be issued 2 weeks after the close of the public hearing. For those of you who wish to receive a copy of the preliminary report and are not a listed party on the case, please send an email to tucsonrezoning@tucsonaz.gov. Again, tucsonrezoning@tucsonaz.gov, or call the Planning and Development Services Department. A copy of the final report will be available from the Planning and Development Services Department, and I send the final report to the mayor and council. At the scheduled public hearing on the case, the mayor and council will then vote on the matter based on my recommendation, along with other factors. Tonight's public hearing will proceed in the following manner. I will open the public hearing and ask Mr. Samuel Paz of the Planning and Development Services Department to give a brief presentation of the case. After Mr. Paz's presentation, I will ask the applicant to make his or her presentation. I will then ask to hear from anyone in the audience who wishes to speak. If you are on a device that allows you to raise your hand, I will follow that guide as far as if you want to be recognized to speak. If you're on the telephone or don't have that on your device, please just speak up and I will call on people as they make their presence known. If everyone could keep their devices muted when they're not speaking, it helps with feedback. After everyone has had a chance to be heard, I will ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to respond to the issues that have been brought up. So with those ground rules in mind, I will ask Mr. Paz to please present the staff report. Mr. Paz?
Thank you, Mr. Reno. This is a special exception request by Rory Juniman of Lazarus and Sylvan on behalf of 880 East Benson Highway LLC and their Novada dispensary. The site is zoned C2 commercial and located at the southwest corner of Benson Highway and Park Avenue. The project team held an in-person meeting on March 6th at 6 p.m. This special exemption is to allow a marijuana dispensary as permitted in the Unified Development Code. This request proposes a new single-story, 4,620 square foot dispensary for walk-in and drive-through customers. The proposed dispensary will be centrally positioned within the site, meeting the building setbacks, and the building height will not exceed 20 feet. The special exception request is consistent with Plan Tucson and the Keno Area Plan. This request is also in compliance with the performance criteria of the Unified Development Code and subject to compliance with the attached preliminary conditions. Approval of the special exception request within C2 zone is appropriate. As of today, there are 2 approvals and 5 protests recorded. Based on plan policy and the criteria of the Unified Development Code, staff supports this special exception request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paz. Mr. Juneman, would the applicant like to be heard?
Good evening, Mr. Urino. Yes, for the record, Rory Juneman, 5983 East Grant Road, and with Lazarus and Sylvan, representing the property owner and the dispensary license holder. Would be okay if I shared some slides?
Please do.
Great. All right. Can you see the slides?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. I do want to first start off by thanking Mr. Paz and Mr. Beal for all their help with this process. We appreciate them. Also, in our conference room with me is Robin Large from Lazarus and Sullivan and Andrew Kevelson, who's our primary client contact. So I'm sure you've been out to the site, but just to kind of give reference to where we're at. We're right at the Benson Highway Park Avenue intersection on the sort of west-southwest corner or segment. It's an oddly shaped intersection in a fairly oddly shaped parcel. It's about 0.8 acres. It used to be a convenience store, but that convenience store has been closed for probably 12 years, if not more. There was some underground storage tanks that were cleaned up there, but it really has sat vacant for years. And you know, as you've been out there, you see that it's pretty rough area. There's a lot of kind of vagrancy and criminal activity that goes on there. So some sort of use in this area is desperately needed. We got asked at our neighborhood meeting why this corner, it's a good question based on what it looks like now. But the real benefit, or the real sort of benefit to this parcel for our client is the accessibility for vehicles and traffic in the area. I-10 probably has 100,000 average daily trips. Park Avenue Benson Highway intersection easily gets around 35,000 a day. So for a retail business that has a drive-through and accessibility from the interstate, this is really a good location. And we think that this use will help kind of turn it around and could be a catalyst for the intersection. The bridges to the north is extremely successful. And so we're kind of hoping that to get some of those customers and that kind of a little bit of that traffic from the north. Here's the existing property. Zoning is C2, obviously, but really the uses around us, there's a lot of kind of more intense uses, office, light industrial, some commercial. Unfortunately, there's some vacant parcels around, including ours. So again, we hope that our use will help sort of start changing that and turning that around. So I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the bigger picture on dispensaries. You probably know this, in 2010, Medical Marijuana Act was passed, but just barely. 10 years later, when the Smart and Safe Act passed, sentiment had obviously changed. It was statewide, a 60% yes vote. But we were curious to see what the sort of the thoughts of voters were in our immediate area. And we were kind of surprised that we saw that in our precinct, the votes in favor of adult recreational use was 71%, and all around us, the lowest was 2/3. So really, from a standpoint of people accepting, or voters at least accepting this use in this area, it's pretty significant. In 2022, the city adopted their special exception land use process for this use. And what that really does is the way the UDC states a special exception, it says that these are uses that could be desired in an area, but they potentially have some impacts that need a little bit more scrutiny. So we go through that process to really show that our use is not going to have a negative impact on the surrounding properties and the nearby neighborhoods, which the closest neighborhood is about a half a mile away. But I think what we'll show in the next few slides is that we easily meet that standard, that our use is not going to have a negative impact. In fact, we think that it might have really be the start of a positive impact to this neighborhood. So, one thing that sort of the first aspect of that is that we do meet all the special exception land use criteria and the use standards for dispensaries. I've provided that, or we've provided that in our application, and so I'm not going to go through those point by point. Happy to answer any questions you might have with them, but really at the highest level, we easily meet all of those standards. So from a site functionality standpoint, this use really is going to function like most other retail uses. While the property is sort of oddly shaped, our building isn't very big. It's going to be around 4,600 square feet. It'll be 1 story. And so it won't have any kind of visual impacts or really any types of physical impacts on the surrounding area. We'll have ample parking. We're going to be overparked by about 7 spaces. And the drive-through that we're proposing is going to have stacking of 10 spaces, which is probably will well exceed anything that's ever going to be going to occur on the site. This isn't a drive-through where you're going to have a kiosk. It's a drive-through where people will do online orders and then pick it up in the window. So and probably those transactions will be 2 to 3 minutes at most. So it should be a situation where the drive-through maybe has typically 2, 3, or 4 cars, much less than the 10 that we've provided. But otherwise, as we'll show in a minute, we're going to do a brand new building, going to demolish the canopies in the existing building there, start from scratch. It'll have new landscaping, a new building. It'll really be a brand new site and a significant improvement to the intersection. From a vehicle circulation standpoint, it's actually a corner that has some pretty good access. If you're coming into the property, like from I-10, you have a direct access in. If you're coming south on Park, you also have a direct both right turns into the property. If you're coming from Benson Highway or from south on Park, we'll have to make either a U-turn or kind of a forced U-turn up on Benson, because Benson dead ends and it forces you to do a U-turn. But really these U-turns are, there's dedicated turn lanes and they're safe and pretty easy to manage. If you're leaving the property, again, if you're going south on Benson Highway, you've got a direct exit, or south on Park. And then if not, you may have to make a few U-turns, but again, you've got dedicated turn lanes for those. So from a vehicle circulation standpoint, it is a safe and fairly easy to access the parcel. Our architecture this is a concept of what Andrew would like to put on the property, although it is very early. But we just wanted to show this to ensure that what's going to be there is going to be brand new, a modern new facility, and really a significant improvement to the area. Now, Andrew's going to partner with Nirvana Center, which is a company out of Phoenix who has dispensaries in 4 states. They've started here in Arizona, but they've broadened out to other states. Management in these dispensary businesses is really crucial. There's not a lot of these licenses, and they're heavily regulated. So management really is key to make sure that the license owners keep their license and that they follow those rules. They definitely don't want to be in a position where they could lose the license. So management's key. Part of that management is security. I'll kind of walk through a little bit more of that in the next few slides. But one thing that has sort of evolved over the years with dispensaries is everything that's going to come into the store is prepackaged. There's no packaging at the store. So that helps with numerous things, with inventory tracking and making sure that that inventory is secure, but also with odor. There's no product that is sort of out in the open. It's all prepackaged in plastic. So that significantly helps with odor. And we're going to comply with those the use standards that that have a 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. hours of operation for the site. One of the things that we did we had a couple of neighborhood meetings. The second one, we wanted to sort of show what a dispensary that Nirvana operates is, sort of what it looks like. I think there was a perception that the dispensaries are kind of seedy and not a comfortable place to shop. And what we knew was the exact opposite, right? The new dispensaries, the modern dispensaries, these are larger companies that operate them. They want to create a good shopping experience. There's now numerous dispensaries in the Tucson area. There's competition, and so each of these dispensaries wants to create a nice, comfortable place to shop. Plus, there's a lot of security. So I'm going to walk just through a few slides to illustrate this. As you approach, and this is a dispensary that's Nirvana operates up in Tempe. It's a brand called Cookies. We're not 100% sure what the brand of this dispensary would be, like the Nirvana, but regardless of the brand, the operations are really the same at each dispensary. As you approach the front door, there's going to be an armed security person there all during the hours of operation. And that person's their primary goal or their primary responsibility is to check IDs and make sure that nobody gets into the building that is under 21. Once you go in, and plus I think also the presence of the security guard outside is also helpful for deterrence of of any kind of criminal activity. But they're going to check IDs the first time, then you go into the waiting room area, and there is a second ID check, and the person at the desk will take the shopper's information. Part of that is security related, but part of that's also marketing related. But every person that comes into that store, the management knows who that is. They enter them into the computer, and they have 2 ID checks before they even get past the waiting room. There's also people will wait in this area because there's a little bit of metering into the showroom to make sure that you don't get too many people in the showroom area. But once you go into the sales floor, there's sales associates there that are on the floor that have iPads or iPad-like devices that they take orders for customers, and they also pay to that sales associate on the floor. Now, one thing is important to note about these sales floors is you see products around, but none of those containers have actual product in them. So they're all empty. They're basically just the container. And so that eliminates any, if anybody thinks they're going to come in and steal something, they could steal the box, but the box is going to be empty. So there's no product on that sales floor. So the sales associate takes the order, and then the customer pays that sales associate and then walks into the order pickup area. And again, everything's prepackaged. The person at this desk gets the name. The order is kind of fulfilled in the back, and so they get a bag with the products in there. They walk through, make sure that the person's getting the products that they wanted, and then they leave the facility out in the parking lot. As you know, by law, nothing can be consumed on site. There can't be any outdoor areas. But really, when you think of it, it functions like most retail stores. Most retail stores, you go in, you shop, you get your product, you get back in your car and you leave, and then you go to home or go to work. So really, these facilities function the same way as most retail. One big difference, though, is the security. Again, you've got security guards at the entrance or exits. And then you also have a significant amount of cameras and lights around the whole facility. And this facility at Benson Highway will be no different. It will have a significant amount of cameras and lights around, as well as the security guards. So I think once we went through this at our second neighborhood meeting, I think it answered some questions, and I think people were a little bit surprised that the look and feel of these are like I mean, the interior is almost like an Apple store, right? It's a new, modern, kind of sleek shopping area that hopefully will attract some customers. Okay, I want to finish by walking you through the outreach that we did, because it was pretty significant. We had our first neighborhood meeting, as Mr. Paz mentioned, on March 6th. And a little bit of background, our firm has done quite a few neighborhood meetings for dispensaries in the county and the city over the last year and a half. And for the most part, we haven't gotten many attendees. And so we were kind of expecting the same here. But when we got there was probably about 25 people, and they had a lot of questions. It was a pretty intense neighborhood meeting, and there were sort of two camps in that meeting. I think there were some people there that just don't like the use, whether it's here or anywhere else, and we respect that. But there was also a larger group of people, I think, that were very concerned about the effects of this use, and they were concerned about the current site, that there's a lot of homelessness there, and they didn't want this use to increase that. They didn't want the crime to increase. They didn't want kids in the area getting access to the dispensary products, and they really were focused on wanting a use that benefits the community, and that they wanted a business that was going to be active in the community. And by the community, I meant their sort of immediate area. This is an area that there's 4 very active neighborhood groups, neighborhood associations that were instrumental in the bridges. Those are still active neighborhood groups, and you know, to their credit, they really kind of hold a high standard to businesses that are going to come into their area. So after that neighborhood meeting, we kind of regrouped, and what we heard from that second group of people, the ones that were concerned about the crime and having a good business partner in their area, we realized that, you know, what we're proposing fit a lot of what they want, and some of their concerns we thought were going to do the opposite. Like, they were concerned about more crime in the area. We really truly think that this use, with the amount of security and the way that they sort of handle their operations, will cut down on crime in the area. If you have, you know, sunshine's a great disinfectant, right? If you have eyes and you have activity in that area, some of the things that are happening there right now is going to move on to other locations. Again, with crime, we think that we're going to cut down on crime. We talked to one of the police officers at the first neighborhood meeting, who mentioned that they don't go to the other dispensary that's in the area. They don't get calls there. And I think they're going to see that from this location if we get approved. But we also regarding their kids getting drugs, you've seen that there's multiple checks of IDs to make sure that only people that are 21 and older are going to go into the facility. But we also have a client who wants to be a good partner in this area and be a good business. So we held a second neighborhood meeting in April. Ward 5 helped us arrange that with 3 of the neighborhood groups: Las Vistas, Pueblo Gardens, and Western Hills. And it was a really good meeting, because there was a lot of open dialogue and a lot of discussions that ended in a positive way. And we kind of agreed to, let's see if there's some things that we can agree on that may allow this to move forward. And that was sort of the beginning of the negotiations for the community benefits agreement that we've provided to you. And as of today, all 3 neighborhoods have signed. Our client has signed, so that community benefits agreement is in effect. Really, the main overall objective of that agreement was to really try to ensure that the dispensary was going to be a productive and beneficial business in this area. The terms, you've probably read it. We've got a neighborhood association donation piece. We modeled that after the bridges. Back 10-15 years ago, when the bridges was coming online, they did a development agreement that basically said, for each square foot that they would pay $2.50 to go to partly to the neighborhood association, partly to job training. So we use that as a guide. We increased that, but we tripled that amount because we paid it over 3 years. But that donation amount is really just intended as kind of goodwill for those neighborhoods to do some of the activities that they're already doing. I think more importantly, though, are sort of the other things that we did. We've put in a hiring preference for people coming from the neighborhoods. If they can, they have to qualify based on the state laws for employees, but our client wants people that live in and around that neighborhood to be employees. There's also commitments of participating in neighborhood activities and having meetings with the neighborhood, all designed to create kind of a long-term relationship. And that's good for the neighborhood. But that's also good for the dispensary business, because these are there's potential customers there, and we really want the dispensary to be an active part of the area. We also put in there that the property must have new buildings, so that ensures that the current convenience store is going to be knocked down, and there's going to be a brand new building on this parcel. So that's really it. I just want to finish by kind of stressing that I think the main thing in this case is, or the main question in this case is, can this use really operate safely and in a way that benefits the area? And we think the answer to that is yes. We meet all of the special exception criteria. We meet the use standards. This site is going to operate safely from a traffic standpoint, but also it's going to be significantly better from a security standpoint based on the security that's required at dispensaries. And we have, I think most importantly, we have an applicant, an end user who wants to engage with the neighborhoods and really wants to be a positive part of the community. So based on all of those things, we respectfully request you recommend to approve this case, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Juman. I don't have any questions of you at the present time. Would anyone in the audience like to be heard on this case? If you're on the phone, you can just speak up, or if you can raise your hand on a device, we'll be able to see that, I believe. I'll ask again to make sure, would anyone in the audience like to be heard on this case? I'm not seeing any hands raised, but I'll ask again. You're most welcome to participate if you would like to. Would anyone in the audience like to be heard on this case? Hearing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing on case TPENT 0424-00012, Nirvana Center Dispensary, 880 East Benson Highway. Thank you, Mr. Juneman, and to all those in the audience. We had some rain tonight at my house anyway, and I hope everyone has a safe and lovely evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Hello.
Yes, go right ahead, please. Start just by. No, it's quite all right.
Who signed the paperwork from Pueblo Gardens?
Mr. Juman, could you respond to that, please?
Yes, Mr. Urino, the president of the neighborhood association signed.
The president of the neighborhood association.
All of us were all against it at the time.
At the meeting, everyone was against it.
Mr. Juman, before you respond, for the record, I need the speakers to just identify themselves by name so the record is clear on who is speaking. Please go right ahead.
My name is Sylvia Garcia.
And Jesus.
And Jesus Garcia, and we live in Pueblo Gardens.
Thank you very much. Ms. Garcia. Mr. Newman, could you respond, please?
Yeah, I
Oh
think
my
what
God,
she's
hold on, I can't even
referring,
hear.
I'm sorry, can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Newman, go ahead.
yeah, as I said in my presentation at the initial neighborhood meeting, there was a lot of people there that, we had about 25 people. And there was a lot of concern about this use and, you know, what we did is go back and work through those city designated neighborhood associations and that with those leaders. And, to address those concerns and really kind of, reset the thought process, I think, on this dispensary. So, we worked with, again, as I said, Pueblo Gardens, Las Vistas, Western Hills, we worked through their neighborhood associations, to come to that agreement.
Thank you.
So you're saying actually, Willie, you got Willie to sign? From Vistas?
Do you want me to answer that, Mr. Urino?
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Newman.
Yeah, so.
Because I know he was one of them that was really against it with all of us.
Yeah, so, Mr. Willie Blake Jr., he's the president of Western Hills too.
Correct.
Yes, and he signed the agreement. He was in the meeting at, the second meeting that we had with the neighborhood leadership. You're right, at the main neighborhood meeting, the first one we had, he was in opposition, but when we sat down and talked to him and sort of explained that really the best chance for this corner, for this lot, is having a use in there that is safe and secure and has a lot of security, and it's gonna be a new building. You know, I can't speak for Mr. Blake, but he obviously came around and now is supportive of it. So, and he signed the agreement.
Wow. Okay.
And then I think, Mr. Urino, there's somebody with their hand up, and I think he's from that neighborhood association as well.
Yes, I see that now. Comes up for me is
They can see you.
I'm not seeing the hand up anymore. Does someone else want to speak? If so, you can just speak out or raise your hand if you have that ability on your device. Please go ahead if you want to speak.
Yes, my name is Rose White, and
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you get closer to your speaker because you're breaking up pretty at my end.
okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. Please start with your name.
Okay, I apologize. My name is Rose White, and I'm here with my husband, John White. I am the secretary of Western Hills, and John White is the vice president of Western Hills. So we work alongside with the president, which is Willie Blake. I did want to clarify that he did sign and he is in agreement with the dispensary. So whoever spoke and said that he was against it, no, he is actually for it.
Thank you very much, Ms. White. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard tonight? I'll ask one more time. If anyone else would like to be heard tonight, please speak up. Hearing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I wish everyone a safe and lovely evening. Good night, all.
Thank you.
Thank you.